Alrighty, cool. So let's just play around with a couple of the basic functions and things that you can do with starting with NumberFormatter. One thing that you'll always have to do to get access to NumberFormatter or DateFormatter or any formatter in general is that you have to initialize it. You have to have an instance of the API. So what we're going to do first is we're going to say let NumberFormatter equal NumberFormatter. And I'm just in the playgrounds right now, if you guys are wondering, just these two.
Hey, Mitch, can you blow that up? I'm blind.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm trying to decide if I want to do it on this page or not. Yeah, this will be good. How's that, Cece? Better? Okay, rad. All right, so we got to declare an instance of NumberFormatter. And first thing that we're going to do is we're going to mess with some decimals. So every single NumberFormatter that you declare will have set properties, enums, values that you can use. And these are things that you can kind of tweak depending on your use case or situation. So if I went into NumberFormatter, whoops, that's the wrong one, sorry. I need to go to the lowercase one. Lowercase NumberFormatter, and then I hit period, and just like always, you can come in and there's a ton of awesome content to use. There's a ton of different values and things. But today, I at least want to go through kind of the basic ones that you guys are going to see. Maybe there's 3 or 4 different properties to use, and I want to make sure you guys are really solid on those rather than learning them in their entirety, because that's a lot to do. That's a lot of work. So one that you're going to encounter quite a bit is number style. I believe it's number style. Let me double check. Yeah, I think it's number style. Yeah, number style. And number style is an enum. You can't see it right here, but it's an enum that provides a bunch of different types of numbers that you could see in the real world. So we've got like currency, percents, decimals. We're going to start with decimals so that you guys can kind of see the inputs that are put in, and then you can see what kind of like information you'd want to pass in or how you'd want to alter them based on these properties. So then what I can do now is, let's see. I'm trying to think of how I want to play around with this the very best. What we're going to do is we're going to say let number string equal NumberFormatter. And then what you can do is you can pass in a number to get a string back. That's this string initializer property that we have. And you can go the reverse. Well, I'm pretty sure you can, but you can pass in a string and get a number back, or you can pass in a number and get a string back. And here in this case, we're going to focus on using an NS number, because in a majority of your apps, you're not going to display a number on a view controller. You're not going to display an int or a double. You're probably going to display a string, especially after you've converted it. And this will be just a nice way to make sure that you convert it into a string that's really easy to use. So what we'll do here is we'll pass in, I'm going to pass in 1, 2, 3 to start with, and you'll see why here in a second. But I'm going to go ahead and print number string. So this one will probably print just the exact number, I'm guessing. In my poor playground, I hope this isn't gonna take too much time away from us having my playground run, because I really do want to get into the app building part of this. Yeah, there's an optional value. So we're just gonna force unwrap because we're in a playground and we know it's fine, so that we don't have to deal with kind of those messages down below with optional. So right here, I've set the decimal, the number style to be decimal, but if you see here, it's still just printing out this number right here, 1, 2, 3, without adding any decimal places, which is fine. That's implied that there are decimal places following 1, 2, 3, but it's a whole number. We can kind of specify that we want to see certain things, and I'll show you that here in a second. So let's add a couple more numbers. I'm going to add 4, 5, decimal 4, 5. And then there are a couple of cool properties within NumberFormatter to kind of organize things. Let's say you only wanted to display 2 decimals or 1 decimal point, or you wanted to display all the decimal points up to infinity. You could totally do that with a little property here. So what we're going to do is we're going to say NumberFormatter dot uses significant digits is this property that allows you to decide how many digits that you want to see in a specific number. So what we're going to do, it's a Boolean property, and we're going to set it to true. So what this means is we're saying, hey, I have a certain amount of digits in my number, and the ones that I care about are within a certain range or a certain amount or a certain explicit value. And you'll see that here in a second. So then if we've got our significant digits, we can come into NumberFormatter again. And then it has a couple of values. So if I hit M, there's maximum integer digits, there's minimum, there's maximum fraction digits. And these are the 4 that I would say are probably going to come in useful for you at some point or another. This will allow you to show how many you want to see. So the first thing, let's do, I can't decide which one I want to do yet, because this is going to factor into kind of like rounding. If you wanted numbers to round up or down, you'll kind of see that here in a second. So we're going to do, oh, and there's significant, yeah, I guess these 6. We're going to do significant digits. So we're going to start with maximum significant digits. And this is a number property that we can give it. And I just want to say, give me 3 of the most significant digits. So we'll go ahead and run this here. And even though we've specified .45 in here, NumberFormatter is set to only look for the 3 most important digits, the 3 most significant digits, most being the higher valued ones, right? So like obviously the hundreds place is going to be more important and have more value than the tenths place or the hundreds place. So it's going to take that into factor. So then if we do 4 instead, then I'll be able to see a decimal place. If I wanted to see 5 digits, sorry, I keep contradicting myself there. If I wanted to see 5 digits, we'd do 5. You guys kind of get the gist of this, right? So significant digits is showing how many that we care about, how many are important to us. All right, cool, cool. What if I wanted to do, let's see here. Can't decide if I want to do minimum or not. We can do minimum. Let's play with integer digits. So minimum integer digits, let's do 2. Let's do 2 and see what comes up. And this is the best way to learn, you guys. You guys kind of like, if you modify different properties in a playground and just play around with them for a little while, you'll kind of get to see the different things that will happen. So minimum didn't really matter, but if I moved it down to 2, actually, let's just do 1 and see what prints out. So there, it said like, I need at least 2 values. I need at least 2 whole numbers to be displayed here with minimum integer digits. So then it could have done 0.0, but that's not a whole number. 0.0 is a tenth. It's a non-existent tenth, but it's a tenth. This needs a whole number. If I were to adjust it to do minimum significant digits, this should change now because our style is decimal. This should change now to do the 2 most significant digits. Hopefully it's 1.0. I'm pretty sure it will be. There's really no way of knowing except to just like run the compiler. Yeah, there we go. So there's those kind of 6 properties. You can boil them down to 3. We've got minimum significant digits. We've got minimum integer digits, which is whole numbers. And then we've got, and you'll have to be careful to just like not contradict yourself when you're doing these, minimum fraction digits, which are however many after a decimal place occur. If I had 2 there. So you kind of will learn how to do these playing around. These ones count, well, I guess I'll say this. Factor in all numbers. These factor in whole numbers. Whoops. and these factor in decimal places, decimal values. So that's just one way if you wanted to display decimals in your app for whatever purpose. We'll use a currency converter here in a second, and you'll see, like, when you want to show like cents, that's super important, right? You don't want to just show like $5. You want to show $5.00 to show the full currency value. But if you wanted to display the decimal, excuse me, the decimal for whatever reason, maybe you're doing a point scale from 1 to 10, and users are allowed to do something like 9.5 or 7.25. This is where the decimal would probably come in handy for you. So there's just like one property to know about decimals, just kind of fun to play with. Now let's do, I'm going to clear out this print statement so we don't have to keep running the print statement down below. Let's do percent formatter. Let's call this next one. And it'll just be an instance of NumberFormatter. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. Does anyone have any questions about decimals that were like super pertinent? Mostly I just wanted you guys to get a little introduction to it. Now let's go ahead and jump into percent formatters. So if I wanted to change my numbers to factor into a percent, knowing what you guys know about number formatters, how should I start going about this?
It has a thing called percent sign,
Yes.
an element.
Yeah, and be careful here when we're working in a playground. I'm going to name them different formatters just because we're going to use them differently. But yeah, so every number formatter has a number style, and it's just an enum of different types that are hard-coded into the system. And if I wanted percent, there's all these. We'll just go into percent. So now I know that all of the numbers that I factor into here, if they match to NS number, I'm going to get a printout that's a percent. And you'll see the nice thing is that they'll factor in the percent sign for us. So let's say let percent string equal percent formatter dot string, that's our initializer, and then we can pass in any number that we want. So if I wanted to pass in 50, I'll go ahead and print that percent string out. And it's going to do that optional thing for us again. Ugh. And my playground is running really slow. So I'm going to eat a chip while we wait. Might as well. Also, guys, it's Cece's birthday tomorrow. You can wish her happy birthday now, but make sure you wish her happy birthday tomorrow. Cece, are you going to come to class?
Yeah.
You're still dedicated? Bless
Yeah.
your heart. She's a good student, guys. All right. So the issue here with percentages, right, is that whole numbers are above 100% value. If you have 1 as a whole number, it's going to be 100%. So there might be a little bit of logic that you might have to change in your apps. But if I pass in 0.25 and print out that percent string, then I know here I'm going to get 25%, which is pretty cool. And then if we wanted to say, hey, I'm curious about the decimal points beyond that, they're important to me, then I can just come in, do the same thing that we did earlier with uses significant digits, set that equal to true, saying that like, hey, we care about these for sure. And then I can say NumberFormatter dot minimum, I'll just do significant digits because we care about the fractions, but we are going to convert them kind of into whole numbers as far as percents go. So I'm just going to worry about minimum significant digits. And we'll say 3 for now. Actually, we'll say 2 so you guys can see. Let's say maybe that's our percentage. We have 0.2575%. If I go ahead and print this out, why did it only do, oh, haha, we need to do maximum, so you guys can see why. Maximum significant digits is 2. And then we go and print this out. We're just gonna see, why is this being so dumb? Maximum significant digits is 2. Oh, let's try fractions then. Me here trying to teach you guys, and I don't even know myself. Maximum fraction digits. Okay, let's try. Oh my gosh. I don't even know why. Well, the point that I was trying to get across for you guys was that there are certain roundings that you can do, certain values that you could round up to. So like if I only wanted to display 25%, even though it had more trailing decimal points afterwards, you could configure it in a way to do that. I wonder if...
Is it because you have 2? If you did it down to 1, would it do it?
I wonder. Let's go back and see if that number works. Oh, it's because I'm using NumberFormatter. Do you guys see that right there? That's why. Percent formatter. See, I knew that was going to mess me up at some point. Uses significant digits is true. Okay, this better work or I'm going to be mad. Maximum fraction digits is 1. What? Well, anyways, I'm going to figure out what is going on with this because earlier when I did it today, I'm like looking at the other one and it's definitely working. So I don't know what the deal is. Maximum significant digits. Let's try this one. Okay. Woo. Okay, we're in a good spot here, you guys. Okay, so I guess we'll just have to use the maximum significant digits here. And it's like, because we're working with percentages and that's kind of tweaking the values because here, like these are fractions, but we're converting them kind of into whole numbers here. Okay, so if I only do 1, it's going to only take into factor this first significant digit of 2. And because the next number is 5, it's just going to, the compiler is going to say, well, let's go ahead and round up because we care about this whole number, but I'm only going to input a value of, I'm only going to output the most significant value. So it's going to round up for us. And then if I did 2, what would you guys expect to see in the compiler, in the debugging console down here as a printout? If I did 2 significant digits?
26.
26. If and when it'll ever run. Yes, so 26. So this is where you kind of get to be picky about, hey, do I want things to round up? Do I want them to round down depending on? It'll kind of depend on how you've set up your max and min significant digits. So if I wanted to see all 4 of them, I could go ahead and print that one out. Yep, and then you can kind of refactor it to the way that you want to. So if I wanted to say minimum, like at least have this many, the compiler is going to be forced to, I think there's supposed to be a 0 at the end of this. There probably should be, yeah. So if I did a minimum of at least 5 digits, it's going to factor in an extra 0 at the end to show those values. So just kind of a fun thing to mess around with as far as rounding goes. You can apply this with any number that you want as long as it has decimals or things. You could do it with, like if I had 123 and I only put the max significant integers, I guess, or digits, it would round to 120 because the two most significant digits are 1 and 2, and it doesn't care about the 3. So it's just going to round it down to 120. So keep that in mind if you want things to be rounded to whole numbers. These will be good practices to use significant digits. Couple more to play with. And mostly the one that we're going to worry about today is currency, because I think you guys are going to use currency the very most. So if nothing else, I think these will be just good notes, good things to take notes with. Cool. Let's do spell out then. This spell out's kind of fun. We'll do let's spell out formatter equal a number formatter. Go ahead and initialize that. And then spell out formatter's number style is just going to be spell out. The title of what it is, just spell out. But I'm not going to really like modify anything else. I just mostly want you guys to see what you can do with spell out. It's kind of fun. So we'll say let's spell out string equal, and I'm going to get rid of this print statement so it doesn't compile. So we're going to let spell out string equal spell out formatter dot string, and then somebody give me a number, a whole number to start with.
28.
And then if we go ahead and print our spell out string, I don't want to print out the formatter. Okay, go ahead and print this out. Done before sunwrap, there we go. So it'll do the work for you of turning it into this format, which is really fun. I could see the reverse being helpful. So like if your user, for whatever reason, input like a string of numbers, like 28 spelled out, and you wanted to convert it into a number, you could totally do the reverse. And the way that you would do that is you do spell out formatter dot number from string, and then you could just pass in the string. So I could just go ahead and pass 28 in. I think it'll still turn out to spell out. But I would just use like the none style, or you could do like just nothing at all, and that would be fine. We'll just call it print out so that you guys can see kind of the reverse of this. So I want to just say turn 28 into a number. Oh, it found nil because it was a none. That or it's 28 with a dash won't work. This is me playing with stuff outside of my notes, and this was a bad idea. But anyways, I think it's because the spell out formatter is not working for me here. Let me move this back to spell out formatter dot number style is equal to dot spell out. But the cool thing is that you guys could turn a number into any string, and it like will print out the actual string for you. It will do the conversion for you. Spell out string equal spell out formatter dot string from NS number. Someone give me another number. Not a whole number, actually. Something other than a whole number.
33.2.
Sure. So the weird thing about decimals is that it takes the actual inherent like text value of what a point is, like what a dot would be a decimal. It just calls it point. The system just knows to call it point. So 33.2, not very intuitive, not the most easy thing to use, but it's just cool to see that it will take a number and be able to convert it into a written string for you. This will come in handy, I'd say, for like accessibility issues. So like if you needed a number to be said, like the compiler inside the processor knows how to say things and knows how to like print them out in this form. So it's really cool. If I do a negative value, it's kind of goofy because it doesn't say negative, it says minus, which is a little weird. So spell out's fun. I don't think I'll ever use it in my whole life, but something fun to use. And then to get quickly through these ones, let's go through ordinal really quick. Does anyone know what ordinal means?
Like ordinary?
So ordinal, I guess ordinary maybe would tie in a little bit, but the funny thing about ordinal is like it's just the set of numbers that we organize with. So like 1 is the first element of something, 2 would be the second, and third and fourth and fifth and so on. That's what ordinal is. It's kind of the organization that we attribute to numbers. And so we can do the same thing here. We can pass in a number and then it will do the work of telling us, hey, you're the third person in the row, which could come in handy for like a queue or information like that. So if I do ordinal, whoa, spelled it wrong. Ordinal formatter dot number style, whoops, sorry guys, is equal to dot ordinal. Then I can go ahead and just say let ordinal string equal ordinal formatter. And then I'm just going to pass in a number for it. So if I pass in 1 and I print out the ordinal string, then number formatter is smart enough to know which exact one it's going to turn out to be first. If I do a huge number, I mean, it's still just going to look at the very final number because that's going to be the most telling, right, of what it is on the ordinal scale. But this is the 100 and 200,000, whatever, and then second at the end. So like this would be good for like queues and scales, that kind of information. So if you wanted to know if a user pressed enter and then you factored this into a queue and they were, say, the 14th person in the queue, you'd probably have some logic to make this happen. But then it can tell them, hey, you're the 14th person in the queue, which you guys could see would come in handy because if you string interpolate the number and then you put like th after, that's not going to work for every single number. You can like the second, like that's not going to work, right? So this ordinal formatter will be nice in those situations if and when you have to use them. The weird thing is if you start to do decimals, it kind of gets a little funky because it still responds to the main whole number. So it will probably just round for you. Let's see if I put like some random crazy number. Decimals just, I mean, I don't know when you would use a decimal, but it will just do the round work for you. So I think if it rounds up, it'll be the same. Yeah, so here's the problem, right? Is like the compiler knows to round up because of the value, but it's still looking at the most significant number right before the decimal point. So like 33rd is incorrect. So decimals don't really work here. Negatives are the same way, they won't really work. But that's the nice thing is like you probably won't have to use decimals. You probably won't have to use negative numbers to attribute to these. We'll just be using whole numbers. So this is the 32nd person in the queue, which is really nice. It'll save you the headache of having to make some logic every time, you know, you string interpolate a number and then have to write ND afterwards. So kind of fun. All right, the last one, and by far the most important, is currency. Have you guys ever used a currency formatter before? We might have touched it in like a very, very early lesson, like your first week. There was like that one where you converted from dollars to pesos. And I think inside had a currency formatter. It was already built out for you, but this is kind of how you would do it. We're going to say let currency formatter equal a number formatter. Oh, shoot. Like that. Go ahead and initialize it. And then just like always, we got to set the number style to be whatever enum that we want to use, whatever certain type of style. There's a couple here for currency. We'll just start with currency to work with so you guys can get some practice with it. And then let's let our currency string equal our currency formatter and then pass in a string. Oops, sorry, that was the wrong one. Dot string. And then we'll go ahead and pass in a number here. So this is by far the most important thing for you guys is in apps where you're having them enter like dollar amounts or values. This will do the work of converting them into a certain currency, and then it does the dollar sign and the appropriate decimal places so that you don't have to. It's really, really nice. So if I wanted to do $14 for my currency string, I'll go ahead and print out that. And then NumberFormatter just does the work of putting it into a currency format for us. I keep forgetting to force unwrap these. Obviously, if we were in a real app, we would, because this is an NS number, we want to make sure that we're looking for errors in case they're there. So obviously, force unwrap isn't a great use situation in a real app, but in here it's fine. Anyways, so it does the work of saying, hey, put the correct currency icon and then the attributed number of decimals that need to follow it, which is usually 0.00. But like a good example of when you wouldn't have those happen is like in Japan, you don't really use like coins the whole time. I mean, you do here and there, but like most of the coins are either half of a dollar or a full dollar or more. So like you don't always need to display 0.00. But like here in America, obviously we use those both decimal points. If you didn't want to use those decimal points, you could change the significant digits and just show $14 if you wanted to. That would totally be viable. But this will do the work of doing that for us. Now, one thing that I think would be good is something that to practice in your apps as far as localization goes. There's obviously going to need to be some sort of logic to factor into this. But one cool thing that you can do is you can say currency formatter dot locale, which just attributes to wherever the user is using their device from. So it will do the work of using location services to know where they're at. And then Apple's API is smart enough to know what certain icons go with what certain values. So you can say locale dot current is just wherever the user is. Sorry, I went through the documentation there really quick. Current is returns the user's current locale. So this won't change anything for us because we're all in the States. But if you're in a different country, the number wouldn't change. It wouldn't do the work of converting for you. You would need separate logic for that. But if we were in Japan, this would be a yen. You know, if we were in the EU, there would be a euro sign. So this is just a good localization practice to use. Obviously, if you're going to ship an app on the App Store and it was going to be used internationally, you would want to use this and then have some logic to refactor the number. So like you would take 14 American dollars, turn them in if you had to. But best case scenario, the user would be using it in their own home country. And so whatever number they're entering into the app is probably, in their mind, the right currency. So this will just change depending on where they're at, if that makes sense. One other cool thing too, if you guys wanted to adjust it, let's see. Yeah, let's do locale. And then you can say, you can actually initialize a certain identifier. And there's a whole list on Apple's documentation of this locale, but it's like I believe America is US _ US, maybe something like that. France is FR _ FR. So I believe it's the euro. Yep. So then it did the work of the euro, and then it's smart enough to say like the euro is a symbol that comes after the number. So that's where it's going to put it. Same thing with Japan. It's like JP _ JP, I believe it is. It might be JN. I'll have to fix it if it's not. Let's see. Yeah, so it got the yen symbol and then it put the correct value in there for you. So if for whatever reason, or if you needed to make a converting app, this is what you would use. Just make sure you have like the right documentation with Apple. They have a whole list of countries and just like their identifiers. So you go and find the right one, just like Japan or France, and then you'd be able to convert from USD to whatever currency that you want to. The one that we're going to do today is just American dollars. We're not going to worry about anything else too much, but that's kind of how that will work. Sorry, did someone have a question?
Oop, that's me. I need to mute. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Do you guys have any questions about NumberFormatter before we'll dive in and use it in a real use case? But I feel like this will be just a good resource to look back to. But do you guys have any questions about what we did here so far? Pretty good? Okay, cool. So number formatter is good, but I would just say like currency is a big one. I'm glad that you guys got some practice using these other ones, especially like decimal places and such. But bye, we'll see ya. But currency is going to be a great asset for you. You'll use that. Okay, let's jump into date formatter. So that's just a different page. This one is way more helpful. I think date formatter comes in handy quite a bit. It's going to be a big resource for you. So let's go ahead and dive into date formatter a little bit. So same thing, we're gonna have to declare a date formatter. Go ahead and initialize it like that. And then these are the different kind of properties. We won't do date components tonight, just because for the sake of time, I'd rather get into it, because my coding challenge that I did last week was a full hour. So at the top of the hour, I'd rather that you guys, we all work together and work through that project, given like you were given an hour to complete it. And I think that will be good. All right, cool. So for date formatter, it has an aspect called date style. And that's just another enum. And there's a couple of different styles that you can use. You can use none for nothing at all. And then we'll go through each of these so that you can kind of see the different variations of them. I'm going to say let current date equal. And does anyone know how to capture the current time?
Just initializing date.
Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a string from a date, and then so date open and close parentheses captures the current time. So this is good when like a user hits save and you want to register that specific time that they hit save. This will do it for you. It's going to capture that exact time, which is really nice. So if we formatted that correctly with our date formatter and I print it out, go ahead and print current date. This is what the short one will print out for you. It just does a numerical form of 10, 15, 19. If I do, there's the other one, medium. Medium will be a bit more detailed. October 15th, 2019. Whoops. And then if we do long, go ahead and print that one. And if you see, the date style is just capturing the calendar date. It has nothing to do with time or any other aspects. Like, well, I guess we'll see that here in a second. Long, I think, did the exact same thing as full. Full, I believe, will print out the calendar day, like Monday or Tuesday in today's case. Yes, so like Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. So these are really cool. You can kind of monkey with them to get what you want. I would say the ones that you're going to use the most are probably short and medium, just because, especially in your app, your date is probably more of like a secondary detail to the user. So you'll want to be kind of quick and explicit with what you mean by date. So these are really cool to use. Now, if we wanted to capture more information about the date, I could use time style to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this. And we're going to bring it down here a little bit more so that we have a little bit more. Whoops, there we go. We're going to modify date formatter a little bit more with time style so that we see a printout of some time information. So I'm going to do date formatter dot time style. And same thing here. We've got a couple of different styles to choose from. Let's go through each one so you guys can see. So we'll go ahead and do short to start with. And I'm going to comment this out just so you guys can see the printout here. So this is our short time style. And I'm on Mountain Time, so this will be different for everybody, but I'm at 6:50 right now. It's like CC on the East Coast, 8:50 there, right? And then if I do medium, it's gonna have I think this actually might be the same.
No, I think it does seconds.
Yeah, seconds, yep. So seconds, if you needed to do like a stopwatch, this would be a great use case. Two of these are the exact same, if I remember right. I think it might be long. Oh, it has Mountain Daylight Time. Yeah, so this one will display the time zone that the user's in, which is really cool. And then full Oops, I need to print the entirety of it. Mountain Daylight Time instead of MDT, Mountain Daylight Time. So cool things to kind of play around with. If I go back to short and I uncomment this, go ahead and print this out. Date formatter is going to be smart enough to say, hey, you want both a date style and a time style, we'll bring these out for you. So this is really, really cool, depending on what you want to display for your user, and it will be really nice that way. All right, date format is where you can get really kind of tricky with how you want things to be displayed. These two are really nice for just kind of routine, basic data. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste again, so you guys see these time styles. Maybe what I'll do, because I still want you guys to have these notes, but I want you to see this later. Anyways, right now I'm going to clear out what we've set up here. I guess I probably should have commented them out, huh? I'll do that. Comment these guys. There we go. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is date format. And date format is really nice in that we can adjust things in a certain way. We can set them up to be a certain format, which is really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and do date formatter dot date format. And if I hover over date format, it's a string. So you guys might have seen these a little bit here and there. They're a little bit wonky, but it's a whole string of certain information. So I'm going to go, let's see here, Swift date formats, I believe this is this. And like if you guys ever have questions about what certain things are, like Google is your best bud. Like Google will be the most helpful thing. I've already used this NS date formatter, but I think you could find it pretty easily if you guys went through the content. But if I go to NS date formatter, it'll show me all these different sorts of date formats that I can use. So I can use each and every one of these to kind of display information. So if I want it to show exactly these things, this is what I'm going to pass in as the string value to get this output. So let's experiment here. We'll do this one first. And if I say, we got to do, no, okay, we'll say let current time equal date formatter dot string from date, capture the current date, and then print out our current time. Then it will take the captured current time and factor it into that kind of tricky format for us, and then we'll get exactly this, which is really nice. So this is just a way to be more custom with the way that you display your information. If you wanted to show everything in like a minutes to seconds format, we could totally do that here as well. Just like this. So these are kind of tricky. I don't have them memorized off the top of my head. I would say maybe the only one that I know pretty well is probably like DD, year. That's like really the only one that I know right off the bat, which is the same as short style. So you might as well just use date style dot short. That's the best way to do that. But if you wanted to be tricky and mess these things around, you totally could. So we're going to use these today. Most likely today we'll use these in the app. But do you guys have questions about dates using date formatter? Or if anything, does it make a little bit more sense how to use them now? Hopefully. Can I get let's do for both number formatter. As far as your comfortability goes with using a number formatter, can you guys give me a 1 to 3 in the chat? Brian, 2. That's fine. These will be good notes for you guys to come back to. And then let's do for your comfortability with date formatter. All right, cool. So we will use these today. They'll be good practice for us. Brian's just like here, but also not here. It's fine. All right, guys. So I'm going to do this. Let's take a short break, and then we're going to jump into the actual app. We'll simulate it like it was my interview. I'll walk you guys through the same exact thing. I'm going to be here to help you, and we'll do the app together. But I will simulate it like it is the technical interview that I did last week. It was with a group called TripleByte, if you guys have heard of TripleByte. It's actually a company that kind of lets you jump through the interview process quickly if you have the skill set, and then you can get through the first couple rounds of interviews for companies that outsource to TripleByte. Anyways, this was the practice interview that I did for TripleByte. They offer a practice interview, and this is what I did for it. So let's all take a couple minutes break, and then at the top of the hour, we'll come back here, and then we'll code for a full hour and see how far we get. If people need to leave early, that's fine, but this will be good practice of like what a technical interview would be like for you guys. So I will see you in a few minutes. Thanks, guys. All right, guys. If you will, like, give me a thumbs up or turn your camera on when you're back, just so I know you're here. CC's here, gotcha. Hello, Alex, welcome back. Oh, I do have a question for you too, since you're both here. well, I
Yeah.
guess it's more something to tell you, but I believe the list will come out for build week. And if you guys like a specific preference for build week, let me know, because I want to give you ladies priority of your favorite app that you want to pick. So let me know.
Where's the list?
I don't know if it's been published yet, but I will let you know. And then I've already kind of talked with the other TLs, and we've agreed that we would like the ladies to have their pick. So you guys, I will keep you in the loop, and then you guys can decide. So it'll be good.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Mitch.
Thank
You bet.
you.
All right, so are you guys ready to start? Just like it's a real interview? Okay, the Xcode project is in the repo, so hopefully you have that open and ready. This is what happened to me. I'll just kind of walk you guys through the process, and then I'll leave you to it, and we'll kind of walk through together. You can kind of code on your own. You can just watch me go, whatever will work for you, but we'll work together kind of in tandem on this.
Fair warning, I'll probably hop off here in about 10 minutes.
That's totally fine. We'll get as far as we can. We might not have a complete project by the end of the night, but if nothing else, this will be a good idea to say like, oh, cool, I can practice this on my own. So what happened for me was the actual proctor gave me his screen share and showed me this app and said, okay, cool, we're going to work on making this app today. And then I'm going to pick certain steps for you to do, and I'd like you to implement them for me on the screen share, and we'll jump to the next step once you complete it. So we started incrementally. We didn't kind of tackle things as a whole. It was just kind of like one by one. So the first thing that he wanted me to do was he just wanted a table view to show cells with these 3 items with some mock data. So these were the 3 things that needed to be included. I needed to get through this step to move on. So what I've done here is we don't worry about the tab bar controller or anything yet, but I do have a table view here, and I've got this pulled up so you guys can see a little bit of what we're going for. But try to walk me through how we would build this out with some mock data, just with simple steps. I know this is taking a step back to like the first couple weeks, but how should I start doing this, do you guys think? Or how would you do it?
Way throwback. Big throwback.
Table views, man. First week.
Let's see. Are we just setting up the UI right now?
That's the first step we definitely need to do, right? Is like get some UI. Because as far as this is concerned, we know that there are 3 labels inside each cell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we'll do is let's go ahead and come into the cell. I'm going to keep it as custom because we have more than one label inside. And I'll call it transaction cell. Maybe a good word for it. And then let's go ahead and make it pretty big so that we can get some stuff inside. And I'm going to bring out a label. I thought I grabbed a label. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to bring out one label. Remember, you can always option click and get more labels if you want. There we go. And then I'll do it again for the amount label. Cool. And the cell is a little bit bigger than kind of what I'm seeing. And he said, I asked him, a good thing to do in interviews when you guys get to that point, ask clarifying questions. Because you can kind of get a lot of insight and information from people by asking the right things. It's not like they'll give you the answer, but they will help you kind of narrow down. So I said, as far as the UI, do you want me to replicate it? And he said, yeah, like the best that you could replicate it is what I'm looking for. And so in order to replicate this the very best, I'm looking at like maybe the font, the colors, the sizes. So I know that the cell is bigger than a traditional cell, but it's definitely not this big. So I'm going to come into the cell and we'll just make it a little bit smaller. That's probably good. Cool. And then what I'm going to do is, just for the sake of time, let's see, we'll just pin that in the top left. And then we will pin this one the bottom left. And at this point, I think whoa, I don't know why that did that. I think at this point, they really wanted to see my demonstration of like auto layout and what I knew how to like set those things up. And so that's 20 points away. I don't know why this is being funky, but Maybe we do need to refactor that other constraint that we made. Yeah, we do. So that top constraint, I'm actually just going to delete my constraint. So this is another thing too, as I felt like I was scrambling at this point, trying to be like, oh man, I need to get these in pinned places. But I think more than anything, the best way to know how to do auto layout is to play with it. And so they wanted to see me move stuff around like this and see what I could do to kind of get things to be pinned in the places that they needed to be. I think in the end, I just did a stack view probably. So we'll go ahead and make a stack view. And then I think I just pinned it where it was. Yeah, just like that.
I love stat views.
Stack views are the way to go, honestly. I also love stack views. This one, I think what I did was I made, oh shoot. I think I made sure it was centered. Yeah, and then I just made sure I pinned that one in place. So I think that's what I did for that one. In this case, I was thinking, okay, how can I get things to show up how I want them to, but not spend all my time on auto layout? Because obviously I need to do a lot of logic and code, move through these things fairly quickly. So that was kind of the goal. So if you look here, we've got the location of where it was like purchased, the purchase place. We've got the date listed here as well. And then we've got a number, the exact amount that it was. So I'm gonna go ahead and rename these labels to match those. And we've got some constraint issues and that's totally fine. But I'm just gonna put some placeholders in so that we can kind of see what these things are.
So you actually had a proctor like watching your every step?
Yep, he was watching and he was like, you can be quiet if you want, or you can talk me through it, whatever you want to do.
How
And
nauseating.
That's terrifying.
it wasn't actually that bad, but I knew it was a practice interview, so that's kind of why. But like I said, like that's how most of them are, and you just kind of have to like get used to it. Cece, you should ask your husband about like his interview experiences because I bet a lot of them were like that. So I'm curious to hear what he says. But
Okay, first of all, no, because the last job, his current job, he didn't even like interview for. He wrote up a job description and he was like, "Hey, hiring manager, you need this person." And they were like, "Oh, this is a good description. We'll think about it." And the next day, like they called him and they were like, "This is really good. You're hired."
what a
So,
dream! How nice, How
right? I'm like, who are you, really?
you know what?
He's
Cece,
like that kid in class that does the opposite of the homework, but like still gets an A because it's creative.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. Basically, that's Devin. Mhm.
Yep.
Oh, that's hilarious. So, okay, cool. It doesn't really matter how you guys have set this up, but like, I think, yeah, they want to see how you work with storyboards and UI and kind of that way. And he said too, he's like, if you want to create them programmatically, you totally can. And I was like, I'm not going to do that because storyboards are way faster and better. But that's just me, right? Okay, cool. So I've got the UI set up and my constraints might be funky, but we won't know until runtime. But how am I going to start getting data inside this cell?
Create a file.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm going to make a model file. And let's call it transaction. Cool. So knowing what we know about what's here in the kind of mock-up, what kind of information do I need to put in my model object?
The merchant name, like merchant, I guess.
Yep. So we'll say let merchant, and I'll make it a string.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we need?
Amount.
Yep. Amount is, do we want to do a string? What do we want to do here, do you think?
I like strings.
Well, the thing is with number formatter, we're going to turn it into a string. So we'll do double just for the sake of difficulty. But this will be good because then you guys will get some exposure to it and you'll not be as, tentative to use them in the future. And then for date, today, we're going to start with a string. And I'll show you why, because I've got some mock data for you guys to use, and it's in a string format. And I think that'll make it go by a little faster. But there we go. We've got a merchant, an amount, and a date. So we'll be pretty good and set there. So I've got the model object, but how am I actually going to get those to show up? How are we going to see them?
But we need to create a custom cell class.
Custom view, yeah.
Yep, we actually need two, right? We need one, a Cocoa Touch for both the cell. We need a table view controller. Let's go ahead and call it transaction table view controller. Transactions probably, right? Because it's plural. There we go. And then I also do need a custom cell file. So we'll go ahead and make another one as well. And this one's going to be a table view cell. And I'll call this transaction table view cell. Cool. So in my mind, when this is all happening, I'm like, okay, I need to rush through things and get as quick as I can to the next steps. But also, you know, if I don't accomplish the first step because I rush through it, I'm that much more of a disadvantage, right? Like I'd rather show off what I can do rather than spend time struggling on something I can't. So this will be, you know, when this happens in an interview, be glad that you have these steps that you can go through, because usually they are going to be timed and they're just going to see how far you can get or what progress you can make in this situation. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Okay, so let's class these guys. So this is our transactions table view controller, and this is our transaction table view cell. And if we look at the mockup as well, one other thing that's catching my eye is that it says your transactions at the top. So just for the sake of some, like following their guidelines, I'm gonna do that as well.
Are we skipping the like homepage view of like?
Now we'll skip the tab bar just because it, like, we'll get as far as we can tonight. But as far as like what the proctor wanted me to do, he was like, "Hey, get a cell to show mock data." So I was like, I'm not even gonna worry about the tab bar or anything yet. I'm just gonna worry about things showing up, and then I'll just go from there. Hopefully you don't get in an interview situation when they're like, "Hey, build this," and you're just like, the entire thing. Like steps would be great, right? Like going through each thing.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've got those, and then the only other thing that I need to do is drag some outlets, right? So inside my table view controller cell, I'm going to put a location label. I'm going to put the amount label. And don't worry too much about like auto layout, because I mean, you're not even going to know what's wrong with your auto layout until you start seeing things show up. So we'll come back to that if we get to that point. Cool. One thing I also did as well that I feel like kind of maybe would earn me some points is I was really organizational. So I added a mark every time I saw like different important things. So I said mark properties, and I think that showed my mastery of like Xcode 11, because now we can kind of see this kind of scale view, which like marks become so much more handy. So I did mark table view cell methods. And that way it just looked like I was keeping track of myself as I was going along. And I kind of was organizing files as well. So what I did here is I said, I just need these. I mean, a cell isn't a view controller, but I think at that point I added it into a view cell. Well, what happened there? I don't know.
I feel like if it were me, I would also add my like my transaction, like my variable. That way, whenever I go to set my segue in my table view controller, I already have the destination dot transactions equal to the transaction.
Yep, those are already like queued up and ready. Did you guys see this? That just like disappeared for me.
It totally did. I was like, where did it go?
That's so frustrating. Well, I'm gonna have to do
It was weird.
Mark. I mean, we'll rush.
Okay, I'm hopping off here, but I'll watch the rest of this.
Bye, Alex. Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank y'all.
You're good. Okay. You sell methods. Okay, cool. And then CC, if you need to go, don't feel bad, because I will probably like keep working through this for the full hour, but no problem.
Yeah, I may have to go in like 15-ish minutes. So get as much as you can done.
Well, that works. Let's we'll get as far as we can, and then we'll go from there. And then we might have another chance at after hours. If nothing else, I think you'll be able to come back to this project. And what is going on? Oh, I grabbed the stack view. That's why. you'll be able to come back to this and like practice. You could set a timer for yourself and see kind of how far you get. I don't know what is going on. I might have to resave this because something's up. Oh man, we're freezing.
Oh no.
Oh, it's a disaster. I might have to quit my Xcode. Well, this is sad because I was like, oh, this will be such a fun practice for everybody, and now my Xcode's crashing. I'll go ahead and see what's going on here.
So that blows my mind that you actually had someone like watching you the entire time, like walking through it and everything. I know Devin works for a company that they take in like contract people for website stuff, and to like vet them and whatnot. They just like hand them a code challenge and they're like, hey, do this, and then they just submit it back. And he used to be on the team that like reviewed their code, and he said some of the submissions he got were just absolutely terrible. Like you could tell like it was a lot of like pasting like directly from like Google, or there was like no organization. So
yeah, that's insane. I mean, I think it's just like if you did a proctored one, it's such a better demonstration of who you are as a programmer.
right.
Like I was excited because at first I was like, no, I'm not going to be able to perform super, super well on the spot. But I also feel like I can kind of talk through my process, show my individual style. I'll actually just show you because I don't think my Xcode's going to work going forward. It probably needs to get reset. But I'll show you what I actually did in the challenge.
All right.
You can kind of see what happened with it. So he said at first, go ahead and display, whoops, that was the wrong one. He said, go ahead and display mock data in this. So I did what we did up until this point, and then I did some transaction data here.
Okay.
And then we had a struct, right? So we made our, I think I called it location instead of a merchant. But what I did instead is in the viewDid load, I just initialized, actually it wasn't even in the viewDid load. I just made that data. And then that was my data source for that. I didn't even use a controller at this point because I was just like, I just need to show the information as fast as I can.
Yeah.
So I think later if I got, and I didn't finish the app, I didn't even get close really. But I displayed the information, and then I was able to come down, and this is way more fleshed out now than it was. But I just basically showed that in the cell. So all the mock data was popping up and showing that information. Then afterwards, he said, okay, cool. I want you to hit the add button and add another thing. Go ahead and add another thing. But he said, don't do it with the view controller. I just want you to add another object after you hit add. So at first I was like, do I do a UI alert? Like, how do I do it? And he was like, oh, just hit add and it can be a copy of one that you've already done or something. And I was like, okay. So I just did an add button and I said, let a new transaction. And then I just initialized one and appended it. And when I was doing it, I was like, this is wrong. Like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. And he's like, oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. Keep going. And I was like, okay. What I really wanted to get to tonight with you guys was filter. So when you come into, where did I show you? There it is. He said after this point, and we were like, we had been chatting through a lot of things that had taken, I mean, we're almost at a half hour now, but by the time I got to that point, I was like almost halfway done with the hour mark. And I think it might have only been 45 minutes that we did, but I can't remember. He said, okay, I want you to have headers and show the different information within the headers. And that was like tricky for me because I was used to doing a core data with fetch results controller.
Yeah.
You know, sorting it like the way that we did in class that one time, but I had never done it by touch before. But I'll show you kind of what I did here. So I had title over header and section.
Right.
And then there's an aspect called section within each one. This is just however many sections that you have. So it contributes to this number of sections, which we don't use a lot. We've often like deleted that out and skipped it.
Right.
But we have 3. So then we know that there's 3 kind of indexes that you can switch from. So I just did a switch case and I said, hey, the first one can be food, the next one can be groceries, and then the one after that can be transportation. just like these three are right here.
Okay.
So that popped up, but it wasn't organizing the data how it needed to be, which was super frustrating.
Right.
So what I did instead afterwards is I used filter to kind of go through those different things. So
Okay.
this is what we did last week that was super helpful for you guys. But what you could do is you could just say, hey, take my array of data, and then each individual item inside, if its category matches with food or groceries or transportation, go ahead and filter it. And then at that point, I just said, hey, return however many are come back from that filtered count. And I did the same thing for the cells, kind of switching through the cells like this. So it was fun, but it was like so hard in the moment to kind of figure out what needed to be done and how to do it. And someone was watching. It was some guy in the UK, like some British guy.
That was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it was a little nuts. And then I had to kind of use the number formatter on the spot. And he said, you can use Google, you can look stuff up, but it was all screen share. So if I looked at anything, he was seeing it.
Right.
And so I was like, am I stupid for looking up number formatter? I feel like I don't know it very well. It was kind of silly. But anyways, I wanted to show you guys how important like the higher order functions like map and filter are, because they're so easy to use and they do great work for you. So if I run this now, you'll kind of see what kind of pops up. But my recommendation, and I can send you this, but even if you just looked up things on the App Store and then gave yourself an hour and say, okay, I'm going to replicate this, that would be a really good practice challenge for you, I think.
Okay.
So anyways, that was the goal for tonight, but I think maybe now that I know that, we'll go about it on a different after hours in the same way.
Well, that looks good.
Yeah, it was
I mean, it looks really similar. I mean, other than like the blue headers, but I mean, that's just one color. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and I mean, header colors are pretty easy to fix too. So
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll just fix that. And the dates didn't pop up quite yet because I hadn't factored those in as like a date formatter would. But I mean, it got somewhere, which is cool. So anyways, what I'll do is I'll send you guys a screenshot of this so that you can do it if you want to. But yeah, bottom line, like look up popular apps that you use. I mean, like Instagram's a big one, and like Twitter, those are pretty dense, big data heavy apps that would be hard, but like more simple ones like note-taking apps would be really cool to practice with. So I recommend that for sure.
Okay.
But what I'll do is I'll leave the repo open so that you guys can work through it like that. And I think that might be helpful for you. So anyways, we didn't get to go as nearly in depth as far as time goes with this, but do you have any questions about what we did tonight or date formatter, number formatter?
The number formatter, like the more I'm probably overthinking it, but like the maximum and minimum, I think it made sense in my head, but I'll probably wake up tomorrow going, what?
Yeah.
You touch on that real quick.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm not super good at them either, but I guess the best way to practice and get good with them is to just work in a playground and kind of print different statements here. So what I would do is I would do like a big long number, and then this way you can kind of modify what things come up. So the use significant digits aspect is just to tell the compiler, hey, these are the only ones that I am concerned about.
Okay.
So if I do percent formatter dot, let's do maximum. So like however many we want as maximum significant digits. Let's go ahead and just do 1 to start with. And I probably shouldn't have done percent, but it's fine. You'll kind of see. So if you'll see here, it only cares about 1 digit, the most prominent front digit. I believe for the same thing with percentages, it'll work. Dot maximum fraction digits is equal to 1. I don't know if this is going to crash my compiler or just show like 0.2 at the end of it. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't care about it. So this is going to supersede. So they kind of conflict with each other. Okay. Let's try minimum significant digits. Oh, I can't spell minimum. I need it to do autocomplete.
Same.
Okay, let's do that. Minimum significant digits, and let's do 3. And you'll kind of see it's going to care about the first 3, and all the rest will be included, I think, as well. Minimum significant digits 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that cared about 5 of them. Yeah, so this is the other thing too, is like it needed 3 significant digits. So I would anticipate that those first 3 are the most important, and then it wouldn't care about the other ones. But it looks like it did care about the other ones.
Strange.
Strange, yeah. So that's what I'd say. I'm not really good with it either. The best way to play around, and I think too, when you're building an app and you do care about digits, you'll be able to fine tune it exactly how you want by kind of playing around. I think too, using a % is what's screwing us up here as well.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit tricky. But I would say this, the nice thing about currency is that it takes care of that work for you.
Right.
It will take those values. And I'd say 9 times out of 10 that I've used a number formatter, it's for currency. In fact, every time probably. I don't know if I've ever not used currency when I've used a number formatter. So if it doesn't make sense right away, that's fine. But just know like the currency formatters will be your biggest help.
Okay.
So,
sounds good. Yeah, I can't stand it when like I'm looking at an Excel sheet or a website or something and it's like $14.5. I'm like, no, where is the 0?
Yeah, you can do it right. Yeah, that's the nice thing about Swift is like it's built in, so you might as well use number formatter as the API. It's really, really nice. And you saw too while I was doing these, like I was shaky on a lot of them because A, I haven't used them a whole ton, and B, I need to learn them more. So
Right.
no one really knows them perfectly, but this is a great one to use right here. So anyways, well, thanks for sticking around. You were the one and only. But I will keep the repo there. We don't really have like a completed project to show off, but there is the playground, so I might post that. But if you have any questions, let me know.
Will do.
Enjoy your evening, and I hope that you have a great birthday tomorrow. I'm sure I'll see you, but I feel bad that you have to have class on your birthday, but it'll hopefully you'll have some fun stuff to do at the end.
It is what it is.
All right, Cece. Well, thanks for coming. Have a great night, and I will see you later.
Thanks, Mitch. Bye.